Thank you for spending a little time here with this story. I hope it gives you a calm, meaningful break in your day. If you enjoy emotional science fiction about courage, dignity, and humanity, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this with someone who might enjoy it too. Now, let us enter Harbor 9, where one frozen container is about to reveal a truth the galaxy tried to bury. The first sign of trouble at Harbor 9 was not an alarm. It was a soft mistake in the cargo log. Ethan Cole saw it on a wall screen while rainwater ran down the glass roof above the underground station. The city of New Boston moved above him in gray morning light, but down in Harbor 9, the air smelled of cold metal, engine wash, and wet concrete. Freight cranes rolled on tracks. Customs workers guided sealed containers from deep space carriers into inspection lanes. Most of it was routine, and most of it was boring. That was why Ethan never trusted it. Routine was where people hid things. He stood beside the duty desk in a dark field coat, one hand wrapped around a paper cup of coffee he had not tasted yet. His badge identified him as an Earth civil investigator assigned to emergency entry cases and protected witnesses. That title sounded quiet. In practice, it meant he was called when someone crossed into Earth space hurt, hunted, or too frightened to explain what had happened. The night supervisor, a tired port officer named Mara Quinn, pointed to a line on the screen. Container 7-4 was logged empty, she said. Cold storage return. No cargo. No crew. No biological declaration. But the life sensor keeps catching a pulse inside. Weak but real. Ethan set down the coffee. How long has it been in the cold lane? He asked. 40 minutes. Maybe a little more. Who cleared the manifest? Mara looked toward the far end of the station, where the container sat under white inspection lamps. Frost clung to its black panels. Ores and freight combined, she said. Priority commercial route. Their file came in clean. Too clean, if you ask me. Ethan already disliked the sound of that. He crossed the station floor without rushing. Running made workers panic. Panic made. People touch evidence, open doors too early, or crowd around someone who needed space more than help. He moved with the calm of a man who had seen enough bad scenes to know the first minute mattered. The container waited in the cold bay, humming softly. It had been built for frozen equipment and sealed mineral samples, not passengers. A layer of ice had formed around the side latch. One camera in the corner hung at a wrong angle, as if someone inside had struck it with a tool or a shaking hand. Ethan crouched near the lower seam. There were faint red marks in the frost. Blood, dragged thin by condensation. He looked at the lock. The outside seal was clean, but the emergency release behind it had been hit from within. Not opened. Hit again and again, with less strength each time. Do not open it wide, Ethan said. Crack the door 6 inches first. Doctor on standby. No cameras except station security. Nobody from Horizon gets past the yellow line. A junior technician swallowed. Sir, Horizon has remote inspection rights on priority cargo. Not on a live body inside an undeclared cold container, Ethan said. His voice stayed even. Open it. Slowly. The seal broke with a sharp breath of vapor. Cold rolled over the floor like fog. For a moment, there was only darkness inside, blue and white from the station lights. Then Ethan saw her. She was curled against the inner wall, thin shoulders shaking, skin the pale silver gray of rain clouds, dark hair frozen in stiff strands along her face. Her ears tapered slightly beneath the hair, and fine lines of blue light pulsed weakly under the skin near her temples. One side of her coat was soaked with blood. Both arms were locked around a cracked recording device, holding it to her chest like it was the last warm thing in the world. When the door opened wider, she jerked away and tried to crawl backward. There was nowhere to go. Easy, Ethan said. She did not seem to understand the word, but she understood his hands. He kept them visible. He did not step into the container. He did not let anyone else crowd the opening. Dr. Lena Ortiz, the station's civilian medical officer, moved up behind him with a thermal blanket. Ethan took it from her and placed it on the floor just inside the container, close enough for the woman to reach, but far enough that she did not feel grabbed. You are on Earth, he said, slower now. No one is handing you over from this room. The woman's eyes lifted. They were amber, wide with fear and fever. She spoke in a broken voice. The translator clipped some of the words, but the meaning came through. Do not let them take it. Ethan glanced at the device in her arms. Its outer casing had been smashed. One corner still glowed with a weak inner light. Who is them? He asked. Her fingers tightened around the device. Orison, she whispered. If they take it, the people inside are gone. Inside the device? She shook her head. The motion made her wince. No, inside the routes. They're still breathing. That was when the first call came through. A legal window opened on the station wall without permission. Mara cursed under her breath and tried to close it, but the signal had commercial priority. A tall, narrow-faced alien appeared on the screen, dressed in a white trade coat with gold seams. His skin was smooth and dark green, and his calm was too polished to be natural. Harbor 9 Authority, he said. This is Varrickson, legal representative of Orison Freight Combine. You have opened sealed commercial property without proper oversight. The individual inside Container 74 is an Orison contract employee who fled with proprietary data. She must be secured and prepared for return. Ethan stood slowly. The woman in the container heard the voice and began to shake harder. Ethan stepped between her and the screen. This is Ethan Cole, Earth Civil Investigation, he said. The person inside this container is injured, undeclared, and found alive inside a cold freight unit on Earth's soil. She is now an emergency witness under Earth protection. Varrickson blinked once. Investigator Cole, you're misclassifying a commercial matter. No, Ethan said. You are misclassifying a person. The port went very quiet. Ethan turned to Dr. Ortiz. Treat her here first. No transport until we scan for trackers. Already setting up, Lena said. He looked at Mara. Seal the bay. Pull the shift roster. I want to know every worker who touched this container from touchdown now. Mara nodded, already moving. Inside the container, the woman stared at Ethan as if she had heard a language she did not trust yet. Witness? She asked. Yes, Ethan said. Her mouth trembled. They do not call us that. They are not in charge of this room. For the first time, she reached for the blanket. Her fingers were so cold they could barely close. Dr. Ortiz worked inside the cold bay because Ethan did not want the woman moved until the scene was secure. The doctor was short, steady, and experienced enough to have stopped being impressed by expensive uniforms. She cut the woman's sleeve, cleaned the wound, and gave her warmth in stages so her heart would not fail from sudden heat. Ethan watched the doors. He also watched the woman. She gave her name as Mira Vey after a long silence. Ethan could tell it was not the whole truth. That was fine. A frightened witness did not owe him everything in the first hour. Lena found a torn patch of skin along Myra's left wrist. Under was a ring of bruising, too even to be accidental. There was a device here, Lena said softly. Something locked into the nerves. She tore it out. Mira closed her eyes. It could find me, she said. It could make my hand open if I slept. Ethan looked toward the cracked recorder. That is why you broke the device. Mira nodded. Not enough to kill it. Enough to blind it. That told Ethan something important. Mira had not survived by luck. She had understood the system chasing her, and she had hurt herself to get a few more hours of freedom. Mara returned with the cargo record on a handheld screen. Container 74 came off the ship Lars per dawn, she said. Manifest says empty cold unit returning for service. It was cleared by Orison before arrival. Any crew request direct access? Ethan asked. No, but one outside technician signed into the cold bay 10 minutes before we detected the pulse. Badge checks out, but the face match is delayed. Ethan looked at the corridor beyond the bay. Delayed by whom? Mara did not answer. She did not need to. A warning light flashed yellow above the side doors. Someone with a maintenance badge had just entered the restricted service hall. Ethan moved before anyone else understood. He took 2 steps back from the container, drew the slim shock baton from inside his coat, and nodded to Mara to dim the bay lights. Not off, just low enough to force an intruder to adjust. The side door slid open. A worker in gray utility gear stepped in carrying a tool case. His face looked human from a distance, but the skin around his left ear had a faint ripple where a disguise patch failed to match the body heat beneath. "Maintenance call," he said. "Cold line pressure check." Ethan did not raise his weapon. "Name?" "Jordi Hale." "Who signed the pressure request?" The man's eyes moved to the container for half a second. "Too long." "Central Dispatch," he said. "Central Dispatch signs with 2 initials," Ethan said. "Give me both." The man dropped the tool case. Ethan was already moving. The case hit the floor and split open. A flat black device slid out, blinking red. The intruder lunged for the container, not Ethan. Ethan caught his wrist, drove the baton into the nerve cluster above the elbow, and turned his own weight through the man's shoulder. The intruder hit the floor hard enough to lose the disguise patch along his jaw. Mara's officers rushed in. Ethan kicked the black device away from the container before it could finish charging. Noah Brandt, the station's data technician, dove for it and killed the power with a manual clamp. Lena shielded Mira with her own body. Mira made no sound. She had gone still in the way of people who had learned that fear could be punished if it was too visible. Ethan knelt by the intruder and opened the tool case with a gloved hand. Inside were a data burner and a narrow injector filled with clear fluid. Lena took one look and went pale. "That would stop her heart long enough for a death record," she said. "Maybe restart it later if they wanted her alive." "Or not," Ethan said. The intruder smiled through blood on his teeth. "You cannot protect stolen property forever." Ethan leaned close enough for him to hear. No one in the bay could mistake the calm in his voice for weakness. "On Earth, you just confessed to attempted murder." The smile faded. Mira stared at Ethan. Something changed in her face. Not trust. Not yet. But the first small break in the belief that every door led back to Orzen. Noah carried the cracked recorder to a clean work table in the secure medical wing. He was young, nervous, and careful with damaged things. Ethan liked that last part. Some technicians treated every broken device like an insult to their skill. Noah treated it like a survivor. "I can pull fragments," Noah said. "Maybe not the full map yet." She damaged the outer relay on purpose. Smart move. If it had stayed intact, Orzen could have traced every recovery attempt. Mira sat on a cot nearby with a thermal wrap around her shoulders. Her wound was sealed for now. She kept watching the door. "No one gets in without me knowing," Ethan said. "You cannot know every door," she replied. "No, but I can make each door cost them time." That answer seemed to matter to her more than a promise of safety. Promises were cheap. Time was real. Noah brought up the first recovered images on a small screen. Ethan made sure Mira could look away if she wanted. She did not. The image shook. Akarwachambe. Rows of bodies strapped to narrow transport beds. Their wrists were marked with glowing contract bands. Some were old. Some were children. A voice off-screen counted inventory in a bored tone. The next image was a list. Names on the left. Numbers on the right. Then the names disappeared, replaced by contract codes. Mira covered her mouth. The third image showed a child being pulled away from an adult whose hand were tied. The sound did not recover, but the adult's mouth formed the same word again and again. "Please." Noah looked away first. Ethan kept looking. Someone had to. A line of recovered text appeared at the bottom. Noah frowned. "The translator is cleaning it up," he said. "It looks like a status marker. No trace required." Mira whispered. "No retrieval required." Ethan turned to her. She was shaking again, but this time it was not only fear. "That means they are not expected to arrive as people," she said. "They can arrive as loss, waste, or replacement stock. Once that marker is on a group, no family inquiry reaches them. No border station holds them. No clerk asks why they are gone." "How do you know?" Ethan asked. The question hurt her. He saw it land. Mira looked down at her hands. "Because I entered those markers." Lena drew a slow breath. Noah stopped typing. Ethan did not soften the silence. He also did not weaponize it. Mira forced herself to continue. "I worked in movement records for Orzen," she said. "I did not load the containers. I did not write the contracts. I told myself that mattered. I told myself I was only moving numbers from one field to another." She looked at the screen again. "Then one day I saw the child from that image. He still had a name. The system had not swallowed it yet. I saw his name become a number under my hand. Her voice broke, but she did not stop. I ran after that. Too late for many. Maybe not too late for all. Ethan looked at the screen again. The recovered route data was incomplete, but one symbol repeated near the edge of every fragment. Noah, he said, can you cross that symbol against active containers in Harbor 9? Noah took it fast. His face changed before he spoke. There is one, he said. Container 12-9. Declared as biomechanical equipment. Departure window in 50 minutes. Mira lifted her head. Do not let it leave. Ethan was already on his feet. Container 12-9 sat in the outbound lane, locked into a loading cradle beneath the Larkspur Dawn's return shuttle. It looked cleaner than the container that had carried Mira. Its panels were polished. Its seals were perfect. Its manifest was perfect too, which Ethan had learned to fear more than obvious fraud. Mara met him at the lane with 3 port officers and a worried look. Orizon just elevated the cargo priority, she said. If we delay departure without a formal violation, Harbor 9 is liable. Run an independent bioscan, Ethan said. Already tried. The scan comes back noisy. It says equipment interference. Equipment does not hide a pulse unless someone taught it to. A legal channel opened on the nearest display. Varric appeared again, still calm, still polished. Investigator Cole, he said, you are now interfering with a separate shipment unrelated to your medical incident. Orizon Freight Combine will consider this an act of commercial seizure. Then you will have a record of my reasons, Ethan said. Your reasons do not override interstellar trade law. Ethan looked at the container. Is there anything alive inside? Varric smiled faintly. That is not the relevant classification. It was the wrong answer. Ethan turned to Mara. Lock the cradle. Mara hesitated only once. Then she gave the order. The loading clamps slammed shut. The shuttle crew protested over the communications channel. Orizon flooded the station with warnings. Somewhere above them, Earth officials would start receiving angry calls from people who wore better suits than anyone down in Harbor 9. Ethan knew all of that. He also knew that 50 minutes from now, if he did nothing, whatever was inside this container would be beyond Earth reach. He stepped close to the seal. Open and under station recording, he said. Dr. Ortiz, medical team forward. Noah, keep every data feed mirrored off-site. If the feed dies here, I want it waking up somewhere else. Noah nodded, pale but ready. The seal on container 12-9 resisted the first release. Then Mara's officer cut the override. The door opened with a long metallic groan. Warm air did not come out. A chemical chill did. Inside were bodies. For one terrible second, no one moved. There were 11 of them, strapped upright in padded frames, wrists locked in contract bands, eyes closed under sedation masks. Their skin colors and body shapes varied, but the marks were the same. Each band carried a number where a name should have been. Lena pushed past Ethan. Move. Now. The medical team went in. Ethan stayed at the door and counted breathing. 1, 2, 3. The 4th was weak. The 5th was barely there. A small figure near the back stirred before the others. He was a narrow-shouldered teenage boy with brown-gold skin and dark ridges along his neck. His eyes opened halfway. He saw Ethan and tried to pull his wrist away from the band. Please, the boy said through the translator. Voice raw. Who bought us this time? The words hit the bay harder than any alarm. Ethan reached up and released the band with a cutter from Lena's kit. He did it slowly so the boy could see every movement. Nobody bought you, Ethan said. You are on Earth. The boy did not believe him. That hurt more than if he had screamed. Name? Ethan asked. The boy blinked. Talon Moore, he whispered, like he expected the name to be taken away. Talon, Ethan said, Dr. Ortiz is going to help you breathe. I will stay until she does. Talon's eyes shifted to the open door, then to the station lights beyond it. They said Earth did not take contract waste. Ethan cut the last piece of the band from his wrist. They were wrong. By the time the last worker was removed from the container, Harbor 9 was no longer just a port. It was a line in the floor of the galaxy, and everyone could see where Ethan had chosen to stand. The backlash started before the medical team finished. Orizon called it theft. The Interstellar Commerce Office called it a dangerous breach of route protection. Several galactic news feeds called it an illegal sheltering of contract labor. The words moved fast and clean across public channels. They stripped the blood and cold from the story before most people ever saw the container. Ethan had expected that. Systems like Orison did not only move bodies. They moved language. They knew how to make cruelty sound administrative. Back in the secure wing, Mira watched the rescued workers through a shielded glass wall. Talon slept under a warming blanket, one hand curled around the place where his contract band had been. Mira pressed her fingers to the glass. "I know his marker," she said. Ethan stood beside her. "From the records?" "From my records." Her voice was barely there. "His group passed my desk 3 days ago. I saw the age flags. I saw the no retrieval marker. I did not stop it. You are helping stop it now." She turned on him, sudden and sharp. "That does not clean my hands." "No," Ethan said. The honesty made her flinch. He continued, "But clean hands are not the price of doing the next right thing. If they were, nobody who ever failed would be allowed to help anyone again." Mira looked back at Talon. For a while, she said nothing. Then she reached under the thermal wrap and pulled out a thin data sliver Ethan had not seen before. It was translucent, no longer than a finger, warm from being hidden against her skin. "I did not give you this," she said. "I kept it in case Earth sold me back." Ethan accepted that without offense. "Good. That means you were thinking." She stared at him. "You are not angry? I would be more worried if you trusted me too quickly." The smallest, saddest breath left her. Not a laugh, but something that might have become one in another life. Noah loaded the data sliver into an isolated reader. The recovered map grew larger. It was not a full list of the dead. It was a moving pattern of shipments, coded stations, and living signatures that blinked at uneven intervals. Mira leaned forward. 3 transfer houses, she said. Not warehouses. They call them quiet houses. If a route is exposed, they move everyone inside and burn the paper trail. Noah swallowed. How much time? Mira pointed to 3 pulsing marks. Less than 6 hours before the first one is emptied. Less than 9 before the last. Ethan studied the map. Can we identify who is inside? Some. Not all. Myra's voice hardened. Orison strips names after the second transfer. But the old data may still be under the numbers. If I can open the inner layer, I can pull them back. Then we open it. She did not move. The inner layer is sealed to my full identity, she said. Not the name I gave you. My real one. My work print. My testimony. If I open it, every Orison office will know exactly who betrayed them. So will every world that bought from them. Ethan understood. She had run with a broken device and a borrowed name, because both gave her a small shadow to stand in. Opening the inner layer would burn that shadow away. You do not have to decide this second, he said. Yes, she said. Idol. That is what they do. They make every decent choice arrive late. Before Ethan could answer, Director Helen Ward entered the secure wing. Ward was Earth's regional director for interstellar civil affairs. She had silver hair, tied back tight, and the tired eyes of someone who had spent too much of her life reading threats dressed as policy. She nodded to Ethan, then to Mira. I need the room, Ward said. She stays, Ethan replied. Ward looked at him. I'm not here to hand her over, but I am here to tell you what just landed on my desk. Orison is filing against Earth. The Interstellar Commerce Office is backing a freeze request. 3 supply partners are asking whether Harbor 9 is still a safe trade station. And the Galactic Council wants a preliminary compliance hearing within the hour. Myra's face closed. Ward saw it and softened by a fraction. I'm not your enemy, Mira Vey. But Earth is not a magic door. If we keep you, there will be costs. Ethan said, there were 11 people in that container. I saw the feed. Then you know this is not a trade dispute. Ward's voice stayed low. I know that. But the galaxy does not move on what I know. It moves on records, pressure, fear, and public proof. Right now, Orison is giving the galaxy language it understands. You have to give it something harder to bury. Mira looked at the sleeping workers. Names, she said. Everyone turned to her. They bury names first, she said. Then no one knows who to miss. If I open the inner layer, I can bring some back. Not all, but some. Ward studied her. If you do that, you cannot disappear again. Myra's hands shook. She closed them into fists. I disappeared already, she said. That is why they survived without me stopping it. Ethan did not tell her she was forgiven. That was not his gift to give. He only asked the question she had earned. What do you want to do? Mira looked at him for a long time. I want them to hear a name before they hear a law. The Galactic Council entered the case, not with soldiers, but with a calm voice from a distant chamber. Counselor Mail Wren appeared on a secure screen in Director Ward's office, where Ethan, Ward, Mira, and Noah stood around a table covered with recovered route maps. Mail Wren was tall, pale, and carefully composed. He had the soft, formal tone of someone trained to sound reasonable while asking for terrible things. Earth's concern is, noted, he said. However, the Council cannot allow unverified commercial data to trigger unlawful seizures across multiple jurisdictions. The witness and all recovered material should be transferred to a neutral review body. Mira stared at the floor. Ethan watched Mail Wren's face on the screen. How long would that review take? Emergency review can begin within 3 standard days. Noah looked up sharply. The first transfer house empties in less than 6 hours. Mail Wren turned his eyes toward Noah, as if noticing furniture had spoken. Unverified projections cannot override treaty process. Ethan asked, Counselor, did the Council receive a petition from contract workers on the Orison routes 4 years ago? Mail Wren's pause was small, but Ethan saw it. Noah pushed the recovered petition onto the screen. It was damaged and incomplete, but readable. Names. Thumb marks. Please for review. A request not for rebellion or money, but for recognition as persons who could refuse sale. Mail Wren's expression did not change. That filing was deemed procedurally invalid, he said. Because the signers were listed as contract assets, Ethan said. Because they did not hold independent civic standing under the trade code in force at that time. Mira lifted her head. Her voice was quiet. They could not complain that they were property because your office had already accepted them as property. Mail Wren looked at her for the first time. This is precisely why a neutral review is necessary. Emotional testimony can distort complex legal categories. Ethan felt Ward stiffen beside him. Even she, cautious as she was, had heard the ugliness beneath the polished words. Those complex categories had a child strapped in a container. Ethan said, Investigator Cole, the Council understands your moral concern. No, Ethan said. You understand that your process is being watched. That is different. Ward touched his arm once. Not to stop him. To keep him from giving Mail Wren a reason to close the channel. Mail Wren said, if Earth broadcasts unverified material, it will be considered a destabilizing act. Trade partners may respond. Council protections may be reviewed. There it was. Not a shouted threat. Something worse. A civilized warning that help could be punished. Ward took over. Counselor, Earth will secure the rescued workers and continue medical care. We will respond to the formal freeze request when it is filed. Director Ward, delay is not compliance. Neither is surrender, Ward said. She ended the call. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Noah said, I have the inner layer ready. It will ask for a work print, a full name, and a spoken statement. Myra's face had gone very still. Ethan knew that stillness. It was what courage looked like before anyone praised it. It did not glow. It did not stand straight. Sometimes it sat in a chair with cold hands and chose to stop running. He pulled a chair beside her, but not too close. Mira, he said, if you do not open it, Earth will still protect you. That is not a bargain. She looked at him. But the quiet houses will move. Maybe, not maybe, they will. She touched the cracked recorder. I helped build the language they use. I know how fast they bury a route. Then you need to know the other side. Ethan said, if you open it, your full identity goes public. Orison will make you the villain. They will say you altered records. They will say you betrayed lawful contracts. They will drag every mistake you made into the light. Some of it may be true. It is true. Some, Ethan repeated, not the part where they get to own the people they hurt. Her eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. What if the people in those records hate me? She asked. Ethan answered carefully. Some might. The honesty hurt her again. He would not take that pain away with a lie. Then why should they listen? Because the truth does not need a perfect mouth to be true, Ethan said. And because some of them are out of time. Mira closed her eyes. In the medical bay beyond the glass, Talon more shifted in his sleep and murmured something no translator caught. Mira opened her eyes again. My full name is Mireva Vey, she said. I shortened it when I ran. Orizon recorded the full one. Use it. Noah looked to Ethan. Ethan nodded. The inner layer opened with a low tone. Mira placed her hand on the reader. The machine asked for a spoken statement, but Noah had muted the mechanical voice and put the request into plain language on his screen. Ethan appreciated that. No one in the room needed a cold device telling Mira what she owed. Mira leaned toward the recorder. My name is Mireva Vey, she said. Her voice shook once, then steadied. I worked in movement records for Orizon Freight Combine. I changed names into numbers. I saw living people classified as contract assets. I stayed silent because I was afraid. I am speaking now because some of them are still alive. The map unfolded. 3 transfer houses appeared in bright red. Noah whispered, got them. Ward moved first. Send sealed coordinates to Earth Rescue Command and to the registered home worlds tied to these identities. Mark it as a humanitarian emergency. Council freeze request? Noah asked. Ward looked at Ethan, then at Mira. It can arrive after the truth leaves the room. Before the broadcast, Ethan asked for one more thing. He asked to speak with Talon. Lena did not like it. The boy was awake but weak. His body had been kept under sedation too long, and his first hour on Earth had been full of strangers, lights, and words he had been trained not to trust. Ethan listened to the doctor, then waited until Talon asked why the woman from the screen was crying. Only then did Lena allow a short visit. Talon sat upright in the medical bay with a blanket over his narrow shoulders. The contract band was gone, but he kept rubbing the pale ring it had left behind. Ethan brought no recorder, no form, no legal witness. He pulled a chair near the bed and sat where Talon could see the door behind him. I'm Ethan Cole, he said. I helped open the container you were in. Talon looked at him with careful distrust. Are we being processed again? No, you're being treated. After that, you'll be asked where you want your records sent, if you want it sent anywhere. The boy seemed confused by the choice. Records go to owners. Not here. Talon looked past him toward the glass wall. Mira stood on the other side, not close enough to intrude. Her hand were folded so tightly her fingers had gone pale. She worked for them, Talon said. Ethan did not deny it. Yes. Then why is she not locked up? It was a fair question. Ethan respected fair questions, especially from people who had been denied the right to ask any. Because right now she's helping us find people Orizon is trying to move, he said. That does not erase what she did. It also does not make Orizon innocent. Talon studied him for a long moment. Adults always say things are complicated when they want children to stop asking. Ethan nodded once. Then I will say it plainly. She hurt people by helping the system work. Now she's risking her life to help stop it. You do not have to forgive her for either part to be true. Talon's eyes moved to Mira again. My mother had a name, he said. What was it? His mouth tightened. The question had not been cruel, but memory could still cut. Savamore, he said. They said dependent records are waste if the primary worker defaults. I did not know what that meant. Then they took her to another line. Ethan felt the old, familiar anger rise. He kept out his hands and voice. Talon did not need Ethan's anger. He needed Ethan's steadiness. If her name is in the recovered data, we will search for her, Ethan said. And if she is not, then we search anyway. Talon looked at the door, then back at Ethan. Why? Ethan could have spoken about law, Earth policy, emergency protection, or humanitarian corridors. All of those words were true. None of them were the answer the boy needed. Because someone should have searched the first time she was taken, Ethan said. Talon looked down at his wrist. After a while, he nodded once. When Ethan left the medical bay, Mira was still by the glass. She had heard enough to understand. Not every word, perhaps, but enough. His mother, she said. We will look. I may have changed her name into a number. Then help us change it back. That sentence stayed with her. Ethan could see it. It was not comfort. It was a task large enough to stand on when comfort would have been too small. Noah found Sava Moore's name 23 minutes later in a buried fragment tied to the second transfer house. She was not confirmed alive, but she was not listed dead. For Talon, that small space between not confirmed and not gone became the first breath of hope he had allowed himself. For Mira, it became the final weight on the scale. When she returned to the recording room, she no longer looked like someone being pushed toward testimony. She looked like someone carrying a door she had decided to open. Orzin attacked the signal 12 minutes before Mira went live. Did it cleanly. No explosions. No dramatic breach. Just a cascade of false maintenance orders, trade injunctions, bandwidth claims, and data storms aimed at Harbor 9's public evidence channel. The station screens flickered. 2 external relays dropped. Noah cursed softly and moved faster than Ethan had ever seen him move. "They're trying to make it look like overload," Noah said. "If we lose the main relay, the broadcast dies before it reaches public mirrors. Use the emergency medical network," Lena said from the doorway. Noah stared at her. "That is for disaster triage." "This is disaster triage," she said. "The patient is the truth." Ethan almost smiled. Almost. He turned to Mara Quinn, who had stayed on duty long past the end of her shift. "Can Harbor 9 hold the line?" Mara looked at the warning lights across her console. "Not forever. I only need long enough." That is what everyone says before forever begins. But she stayed. Mira stood in the small recording room with a plain Earth flag on one wall and no council seal anywhere. Ethan had insisted on that. This was not a hearing. It was not a trial. It was a witness statement and a rescue alert. He checked the room himself. Door seals. Vent access. Camera angle. No commercial feed inside the hardware. No one stood behind Mira. No one stood in front of her except the lens and the choice she had made. She watched him work. "You do this for all witnesses?" she asked. "I try. Even the ones who did wrong things?" Ethan looked at her. "Especially the ones who think that means no one should protect them while they try to do right." She took that in. Outside the room, Director Ward spoke with Earth officials over a secure line. Her voice was clipped and tense. Ethan, heard enough to know the pressure had reached the top. Trade routes, medical imports, retaliation, council sanctions. The words kept coming. Mira heard them too. "Earth will suffer from me," she said. "Earth is not suffering for one person," Ethan said. "Earth is choosing what kind of door it wants to be. A door can be broken. Yes, that is why someone has to stand in it." The broadcast light turned on. Noah's voice came through the room speaker. "We are live on Earth public channels. Medical mirrors are carrying. Civilian mirrors are picking up. I cannot promise how long before Orzin hits the next layer." Myra's hands trembled. Ethan stepped back until he was outside the frame, but still where she could see him. She looked once at him. He nodded. Mira faced the camera. "My name is Mireva Vey," she said. "I was a movement records worker for Orzin Freight Combine. I'm not here to ask you to believe that I am innocent. I am here because the people I recorded were innocent, and many of them are still alive." The signal glitched. Noah held it. Mira did not rush. That mattered. If she rushed, she would sound like a fugitive. She spoke like someone carrying names with both hands. "Orzin called them contract assets," she said. "I call them that too. I entered the words. I cannot remove what I did, but I can tell you what those words hid." She looked down at the first recovered list. Selamar, food grower from the outer colony of Ven. Listed as Labor Unit 712. Still alive at Transfer House Gray Harbor. Ethan saw Ward close her eyes outside the glass. Rohan Pell, machine repair teacher. Listed as Load Item 49. Still alive at Gray Harbor. The signal shook again. Mara's voice came over Ethan's earpiece. "We lost Relay 2. Switching." Mira kept reading. Talon Moore, student worker. Listed as juvenile contract asset. Found alive in Harbor 9, Earth. In the medical wing, Talon was awake now. Lena had raised his bed so he could see the wall screen. He stared at Mira as she spoke his name, not his number. Across public channels, the names began to spread. At first, Orzin's feeds tried to drown them with statements. Then the home worlds started answering. Small planetary networks, colony registries, family boards. People who had been told their relatives were lost, transferred, dead, or never properly registered heard names they had buried in grief because no authority would take them seriously. Mira read another name, then another. Then she stopped at one line and pressed her lips together. Ethan knew that pause. He did not speak. The choice had to stay hers. She continued. Neri Voss, she said. Child dependent. No contract signature. No legal consent. Listed as transferable due to guardian default. Last signal at Transfer House, Red Vale. Her voice bent, but did not break. No child signs a contract by being hungry, she said. It was the closest thing to a speech she gave. It was enough. The public pressure did what council process had not. It made delay visible. It made neutral language ugly. It made every hour of waiting look like a choice to let the transfer houses empty. Counselor Mail Wren returned on an emergency channel 20 minutes later. This time, he did not speak first to Ethan. He spoke to Director Ward. The council is ordering a temporary suspension of Orison Freight Combine's labor movement licenses pending review, he said. His face looked colder than before. A humanitarian corridor may be opened under Earth supervision with council observation. Ward said, Earth accepts the corridor. We will not accept Orison personnel in contact with rescued witnesses. That condition is under review. Then review quickly, Ward said. The public is listening now. Mail Wren's jaw tightened. Ethan did not need him to look defeated. That was not the point. The point was that he had to move. Within the hour, Earth rescue ships launched toward the nearest transfer coordinates. Other worlds followed because their own people had heard the names. Some came out of shame, some out of anger, some because public grief had become louder than trade fear. Orison tried to deny the map. Then it tried to call it stolen. Then it tried to say the transfer houses were medical holding sites. But the first rescue feed showed rows of sedated workers and contract bands stacked on a table like shipping tags. The words stopped working after that. Harbor 9 stayed awake through the next day. There was no parade, no grand victory, only stretchers, warming blankets, translators, frightened families calling across impossible distances, and workers who flinched whenever a door opened too fast. Ethan moved through the intake hall with Lena checking the flow. He had a cut above his eyebrow from a relay room scuffle after another Orison contractor tried to shut down a local mirror. He had not noticed the cut until Lena pressed a cloth into his hand and told him not to bleed on her patients. Mira sat on a bench near the glass wall, wrapped in the same kind of plain gray blanket given to every rescued worker. She could have hidden in a secure room. Instead, she had asked to sit where people came in, not close enough to crowd them, close enough to hear. Talon Moore walked slowly beside a nurse, still weak but upright. His contract band was gone. A pale mark remained around his wrist. At the intake table, a young Earth clerk smiled at him with careful gentleness. What name should we put on your record? She asked. Talon froze. The clerk waited. No one rushed him. No one filled the silence with a number. Finally, he said, Talon Moore. The clerk typed it in. Thank you, Talon, she said. You are safe in this station. Dr. Ortiz will help you next. Mira bowed her head. Ethan stood beside her, not speaking. After a while, she said, the first time I saw his record, I shortened it. The system said the full name used too much space. Ethan looked at the intake table, where the clerk was adding Talon's name letter by letter. Earth has room, he said. Mira cried then, quietly, not as a person asking to be forgiven, as a person watching one small part of the damage stop. Director Ward found Ethan near the end of the hall an hour later. You were suspended from field action pending review, she said. Ethan nodded. I expected that. Do not look so calm. It is irritating. Am I fired? No. Ward looked through the glass at the intake room. Not today. Maybe not ever. But I need a report that does not make every trade lawyer in the council chamber want to chew through steel. I can write plain sentences. That is what I am afraid of. For the first time that day, Ward almost smiled. Then her face sobered. The corridor is temporary. Orison will fight. Other companies will hide their routes. Council will try to narrow the ruling. This is not over. Ethan watched another worker step to the intake table. She was old, with trembling hands and clear blue eyes. When the clerk asked her name, she answered so softly the translator had to lean closer. "No," Ethan said. "It is not over." Mira stood and came toward them. She held a printed Earth protection record in both hands. Lena had given it to her because Mira did not trust files she could not touch. At the top was her full name, Mira Vave. Below it, in plain language, was her status. Witness under Earth protection. Not asset. Not fugitive. Not contract breach. Not property. Witness. She ran her thumb over the words. "They will still say I stole from them," she said. "Yes," Ethan said. "They will still say the people in those routes belong to them." "Yes." She looked through the glass at Talon, who was now speaking to Lena with both hands wrapped around a cup of broth. "And Earth will still say no?" Ethan did not answer right away. He looked around Harbor 9. At Mara, Quinn asleep in a chair after 30 hours on duty. At Noah Brandt fixing a relay with shaking hands and a stubborn jaw. At Lena Ortiz, moving from patient to patient like exhaustion was something she would deal with later. He looked at Director Ward, already back on a call, fighting with people who preferred clean language to clean hands. Earth was not perfect. It was not simple. It had fear in it, politics in it, selfishness in it, and people who would always ask whether one more stranger was worth the cost. But also had doors. And sometimes, when the galaxy pushed someone bleeding against one of those doors, a person on the inside opened it before asking if opening it was convenient. Earth already said no, Ethan said. Now he keeps saying it. Mira held the record to her chest. Not like the broken device from the cold container, but like something warm enough to believe in one breath at a time. Outside Harbor 9, morning had become afternoon. Rain still tapped against the glass roof. Freight cranes still moved. The galaxy had not become kind. The council had not become brave. Orison had not become honest. But in one intake hall on Earth, people who had been shipped as cargo were being asked for their names. And for that day, the system that had buried them had to listen. When the first names were written into Earth's records, they were no longer cargo. They were no longer contract assets. They were no longer numbers moving through a cold system that had learned how to look away. They were people again. Maybe that was why the galaxy feared Earth more than any weapon it had ever built. Not because humanity was stronger than every empire. Not because humans never made mistakes. But because when a frightened witness came out of the dark holding the truth in broken hands, one human being stood in front of her and said she would be heard. Ethan Cole did not save everyone that day. Earth did not heal the whole galaxy in a single act. But a door opened. A list of buried names became living voices. And somewhere across worlds that had forgotten how to care, people began to understand that sanctuary is not just a place. It is a promise. A promise that when the powerful call you property, someone will still call you by your name. A promise that when the system says you do not count, someone will count you first. And a promise that if the galaxy tries to erase the innocent, humanity will not always look away. Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you, please give the video a like, share it with someone who enjoys emotional science fiction, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about courage, dignity, and the quiet strength of humanity. And before you go, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If Earth became the last sanctuary in the galaxy, who do you think humanity should protect first?